I've shared that at different times in recent years I've been instructor in canon law at the two seminaries here in Milwaukee, or even Marquette Law School. They would have a course in canon law as an elective. First day of class, I always kind of have the same shtick, really, kind of get them thinking about how law works and whatnot. And I ask the question to, the seminarians are all bright and excited. The law school students are usually, okay, I'm here, I gotta be here, type of thing. But I ask, can you imagine a circumstance where law is not necessary? Someone, with enthusiasm, in heaven. And I say, well, close, but not really. I mean, there had to be some rule, otherwise Lucifer would not have been cast out. And, well, what about before the fall in the Garden of Eden? Well, no, the only reason the fall came about was there was one rule that they disobeyed. I go on and just kind of make this case, and then I steal or misuse a phrase from my biblical studies, scripture scholar colleagues, and say, wherever two or more are gathered, there is law. There's some rule regulating. And then I'll go on and teach about the different kinds of law. Thomas Aquinas was great. He laid it all out for us that I use. And, there's divine law. In the image and likeness of God, we've been created. Male and female, he created them. And then there's natural law. Natural law. Women become mommies and men become daddies. Yep. And then the third is human law, the ones we create. Men have to hit from the blue tees and women get to hit from the red tees. Those are some of the gradations of law. So we understand that our scripture and our faith is not, anti-law. In fact, Jesus came to fulfill the law, not to abrogate it, he said. So now today in our first reading from Exodus, we have the provision, the giving to Moses of the 10 Commandments. And it's one of those where, okay, like I've said often, you know what's coming, so you begin to let your mind wander. Well, stuck right in there with the first commandment is this interesting little phrase that I wonder if it caught your ear the way it did for me this year. But remember that first commandment. I, the Lord, am your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, that place of slavery. So this whole law, this whole commandment is premised on freedom from slavery. You shall not have other gods besides me, it says. You shall not carve idols for yourselves, so on. It goes down. You shall not bow down before them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. A jealous God. I don't know. When I first, kind of was sitting down with this earlier in the week, it just didn't seem like a God-like trait to be jealous. I can't imagine, in that soap opera sense of jealousy, I can't imagine God up in heaven, kind of asking himself, are they flirting with Buddha over there? Are they talking to the Hindu people, the Hindu God over there? That's not, God is not that weak of a personality or unsure of himself. So that had to mean something else. The translation had to be weak in some way, or at least the definition we're giving to it. Well, as you know, I'll go start researching that, kind of figure out where did this use of jealous come from. Well, if you go into any good dictionary, and I pulled one up on the internet that I use a lot, the first two definitions of jealous are what we expect. What we expect. Feeling or showing envy of someone or their achievements and advantages. I don't know, God's not feeling envious of the false gods that, Moses was worried about. And then the second, feeling or showing suspicion of someone's unfaithfulness in a relationship. Again, that's kind of that example where God's not up in heaven wondering why we haven't called in a while or something like that. But the third one, and it's a very old definition, and as I researched it more, it fell out of favor about 2 centuries ago. But the third definition, fiercely protective or vigilant of one's rights and possessions. Fiercely protective is really what jumped out at me. This notion that when God in that escape from Egypt brought freedom to those who were enslaved, he did so with a great purpose, that which is his own, where he was the creator, would have the freedom that they warrant, that they deserve, having been made in the image and likeness of God. That idea, and I mentioned, Jesus said, I come to fulfill the law, not to abrogate it. That sense that the law gives us freedom, while a little bit foreign to us today, is extremely common throughout the Scriptures. In the Old Testament, one of the Psalms, one of the songs of King David, Psalm 119, I will keep your law always, for all time and forever. I will walk freely in an open space because I cherish your precepts. Goes on, I lift up my hands to your commandments. I study your statutes, which I love. And then even Paul in his letters, this one to the Galatians, for freedom Christ set us free, so stand firm and do not submit again to the yoke of slavery. And so we have this image, this knowledge that God gave us freedom, and then he gave us the precepts, the laws, the rules that will keep us free. That may seem odd to us. Let me give an example or an image. Years ago when I was in college, I worked at a bowling alley. Actually, I worked in the bar, but in the bowling alley, one day I was there early. I had to do something at work, paperwork or whatever, and I saw they had a bowling league or activity for kids, 4, 5, 6 years old. And what they do in that setting is in all the gutters, they put these inflatable tubes the length of the alley, so that so long as the little kid can get enough roll on the ball, which wasn't always the case actually, but got enough roll on the ball, it might bounce off the bumper. They were little bumpers, and it would keep going towards the ultimate goal, and it would always knock down a few pins. So I think, the law of the Lord, laws in general, good laws at least, are that sense. They set the parameters. We kind of bounce off of it, but we're allowed to continue to move forward in that powerful journey of faith, that journey to our destiny with the Lord. That's why we have these the first 3 of the 10 commandments, the Decalogue, the 10 words, those are that which defines our relationship with God, with our Creator. The first I've read, it truly is a reflection of the freedom he wants to give us, and then what we should want to offer in return. And then the second tablet, the other 7, the 7 commandments, govern our relationship with others, govern our relationship in community and with one another. What is, though, the loss of freedom for those last 7? Well, really, when you think about it, when we get drawn into the sinfulness of breaking one of the commandments, to covet, to violate the 6th commandment, to lose honor for our father, our mother, for our legacy, our history. Those are putting something before true freedom. That's actually, we're enslaved to our passions, to our desires and needs. So the Lord gives us these commandments to keep us moving in the right direction, free from slavery, free from enslavement of our own choosing. Now, if that little phrase in the first reading was difficult to understand, or it stood out for me, I think anybody who hears the gospel says, this whole scene seems unusual. This whole scene, we're so used to Jesus is just that warm, fuzzy, welcoming person. This is not in the character that we expect for Jesus. Now, when I was going through the gospel and reading through it, I got to be honest, this is a passage that I think is so full, and priests like it for a couple of reasons. A, it's so dense with meaning and possible meaning, and it's also a great justification when we get angry at a parish council meeting. So, it just works out. But as I'm going through it, one of the lines that jumped out is that the disciples, seeing his actions, they recalled a passage from the Psalms again that said, "Zeal for your house consumed me." Zeal for your house consumed me. They looked at Jesus' actions and they said, he's zeal-filled, he's zealous. He's zealous. When I was studying the history and meaning of the word jealous, do you know that up until about 400 years ago, jealous and zealous were the same word. They were the same word. So when Jesus is zeal-filled, when he's zealous for the house of the Lord, for the temple, he's protective. He wants this because he has created it. And in fact, in this case, he's laying the groundwork for he will be the sacrifice. The sheep, the oxen, the doves, they were what people thought had to be the sacrifice, and he was saying, no, it's going to be different. The money changers, he was going to be the value that everybody sought. It wasn't going to be necessary to have Roman coins or temple coins and have to make the exchange, because he would be the sacrifice and he would be the value. He was zeal-filled because he was pressing his people to understand, his disciples in advance, but for all of us now to understand how easy it might be for us to give in to a new slavery. Paul, in his letter to the Corinthians, our second reading today, points out Jews want signs and Greeks want wisdom, because that can substitute. Prove it, they're saying, or explain it to me. And Jesus just says, just watch, just accept, just receive. Don't enslave yourself to even this erudite notion of signs and wisdom. Don't enslave yourself, he's warning us again anew, to any, the violations of the commandments, those superficial things. Don't enslave yourself to this time or this moment. In fact, be joined to Christ and his law and his fulfillment of the prophets, as we heard in previous weeks at the Transfiguration. Be joined to Christ and have a new freedom. Too many people in our world today think that if I profess my faith in Jesus, if I am active in my church, if I am participating in what the church asks of me, both in moral teaching and in social teaching, that somehow I am less free. But it's like the little kids bowling. Yeah, you may bump up against the edges, the bumpers in the gutters. But you will always be moving in the direction that is the fullness and the truth of freedom. You will be moving in the direction of a heavenly home. So we receive the Lord. Yes, today he expresses his desire for us with a boldness, with an anger, because so many people were trying to foster a new slavery to sin, a new slavery to rationalizing away faith, a new slavery to worldly values and worldly wealth. But he is saying, reject that, stay on the path of the law of the Lord, and in that way, eventually, we will reach and attain a heavenly home. The fullness of forgiveness of any sins, the fullness of the blessings and joys of Christ's eternal love for us, the Father's eternal presence to us, the Spirit's eternal embrace of us. So this day, we may have an image that is stark and startling, but it is actually an image that sets the groundwork for how God's love for us, his law for us, will set us free. Blessings to you.